problem, ma'am? Stoic, trooper!
Paul Verhoeven's Starship Troopers is many things. First and foremost, it's a great action movie with a good sense of humor. However, what it isn't is a critique of Heinlein's proposed society. Some people interpret it as a parody of American militarism in general, but I will argue that, despite the mockery of propaganda, this movie is barely satire, let alone critique. But I'll also add that it really doesn't need to be. People have accused both the book and the film of depicting and promoting fascism. These people are what we call politically literate, retards for short. They've both also been accused of being excessively militaristic by disgusting bug apologists. The bug hippies kind of have a point, but there's more to it. So what I'm going to do in this video is quickly go through the movie's plot, the differences with the book, and examine both of their ideals and messages. If you want to watch this film yourself, it's on YouTube. I put some links in the description. Let's begin. Before we start exploring subtext, let's quickly recap the plot. After a very brief flash forward to the Klendathu drop, the movie opens with our protagonists at school. The characters to keep in mind are Johnny Rico, our main guy, Carmen, his high school sweetheart, Carl, Rico's best friend, and Dizzy, a girl with an unreciprocated crush on Johnny. We're briefly shown the final bits of a history and moral philosophy lesson by Mr. Raskas, then a xenobiology one where we learn a bit about the bugs. Rico's then analyzed by Carl for psychic potential, but unlike him, he has none. We're then treated to a game of future football, where our protagonist meets Xander, flight school cadet and future love rival. Carl, Carmen and Rico all enlist together, but they're chosen for different roles. Carl gets games and theory, Carmen gets navy and Rico gets mobile infantry.
Good for you. Mobile infantry made me the man I am today.
After they say goodbye to each other, we see Rico's training platoon and it turns out Dizzy followed him. Yes, in the movie the mobile infantry has mixed genders units, men and women even share dormitories and showers. We spend some time with Rico, Dizzy and Ace, another trainee, competing for the squad leader role, and we see the platoon bonding a bit. All is well for Johnny, who gets chosen to lead, but during a live fire exercise he accidentally causes the death of one of his men and gets lashes for it. We also get to see Carmen on the Roger Young being paired with Xander as a flight team. Rico and her kept in touch during training via TikTok.
It's a good day to die when you know the reasons why. Citizens, we fight for what is right.
But Carmen eventually decides to go career and thus officially breaks up with him. Anyway, after the live fire incident, Rico decides to quit, but just before departing, a bug meteor shot from Klendathu hits Buenos Aires, killing the families of Rico, Carmen, Dizzy and Carl.
Goddamn bugs whacked us, Charlie.
War is thus declared, and after a little brawl between Johnny and Xander, the mobile infantry, all pumped and ready to go, drops on Klendathu and it goes horribly. Many ships are lost and many soldiers die in horrible ways. Rico is wounded and erroneously marked as killed in action, but him, Dizzy and Ace survive the drop. After the massive amounts of casualties, they're transferred to the Roughnecks led by Rico's former teacher, Lieutenant Raskas. With a new Sky Marshal in charge, the mobile infantry strategy changes and they manage to achieve some victories. Rico sticks out enough to be promoted to corporal. He and Dizzy get together while their unit is celebrating the liberation of a planet. They're next sent to Planet P, from where a distress call, which is never a trap in any video game or movie ever, is launched. While getting to the location, a sergeant is picked off by a flying bug and Rico is promoted to take his place. They get to the outpost and turns out everyone there is dead, except one general that hid in a closet. He reveals that there's some kind of bug that can mind control people and gather intel by sucking human brains. The distress call was launched by the bugs and they're now assaulting the outpost. The general, the lieutenant, Dizzy and many other soldiers die, but a retrieval boat flew by none other than Carmen and Xander comes in just in time to bring the survivors out. During Dizzy's funeral, they're visited by Carl, now a high-ranking officer. He promotes Rico to lieutenant and explains that the new Planet P was probably a trap, but that by taking taking the bait, they now had proof of intelligent, strategizing bugs pulling the strings. Reinforced with some young recruits, they're now launching an all-out assault on the planet with the hope of capturing a brain bug. Meanwhile, in orbit, the Roger Young is hit by bug plasma. Xander and Carmen crew an escape pod and crash land on planet P. Rico receives their distress call but figures they're dead already, until out of nowhere gets a feeling that Carmen is still alive and down a specific hole. Xander is killed by the brain bug and Carmen slices his brain-sucking stinger? Johnny arrives just in time to save her, Black Guy suicides and the survivors go back to the surface. There they meet Carl, who implies he telepathically informed Rico of Carmen's whereabouts. Turns out Zim, Johnny's old drill instructor, was the one that captured the brain bug.
It's a fray!
The movie ends with the brain bug being experimented upon and with our surviving characters continuing their career in the military. Speaking of this ending, there's something I haven't mentioned. There's literal propaganda videos sprinkled throughout the movie that are sarcastic and light-hearted. I'm not an expert on his films, but Paul Verhoeven seemed to have fun depicting absurd future societies. Similarly, in the propaganda of Starship Troopers, arguably the most iconic parts of the movie, we get some humorous moments. They are satire of militarism. It is absurd to have children play with guns and bullets or having them stomp on cockroaches as a bug-directed 2 minutes of 8 moment. But I'll argue that the brutal and serious combat scenes completely nullify their satirical aspects. The bugs are a serious threat, they're incredibly deadly, relentless and smart. While the propaganda has some comically absurd elements, this society is completely justified in glorifying their military. These bugs are not aliens you can reason with. They attacked Earth with a WMD because human settlers made a colony on a planet they claimed. Conflict with them was inevitable and they were a deadly threat to humanity. While it's true that the MI severely underestimated them, this is merely a plot point from the book rather than satire of any kind. There's a real opportunity to show stuffy overconfident officers dying because of their own hubris, or maybe out of touch generals convinced of their imminent victory even when everything starts crumbling down, but there's none of that. Instead, it's an incredibly serious scene, even without any music. The soldiers aren't used to fighting the bugs yet, and this is a battlefield where both bravado and cowardice kill you. The disciplined and the collected are the ones that survived Klendathu. The satirical element would have worked if the bugs had been portrayed as dumb. If they were just animals protecting their territory and the MI kept being slaughtered by them, then it would have been an effective mockery.
Who's that? Who are you?
But the bugs are capable of offensive action, strategic retaliation and deception. Speaking of smart bugs, the ending has also been pointed out as a satirical element.
It's afraid. It's afraid!
But the reason why people cheer at the brain bug being afraid is that they just realized that the bugs are capable of fear. The warriors and worker are a hive mind commanded by the brains, or at least they are in the book, but there's nothing in the film to contradict it. So the revelation that the brain bugs can be scared means that the race can be coerced to stand down by show of force. It's not an exact scene from the book, but discussions about whether or not the bugs will or even can surrender are entertained several times. So it's not a dumb, they're scared of us, let's celebrate moment, there's more to it. What about critiquing the book's messages? Well, there's very little in that department as well. First of all, you could argue that the propaganda scenes are implying that, although there's a difference between citizens and civilians, the need of new soldiers would inevitably lead to heavy use of recruitment material, thus invalidating the selective nature of citizenship. Maybe? In the book, we're not shown how the recruitment process goes during a war, but at least while at peace, we know that propaganda just isn't a thing. The military is seen by many civilians as bloated, obsolete and money-hungry. But more importantly, recruiters and teachers even make sure they're not encouraging service.
No, Ratchak doesn't do that at all. He sort of discourages you.
By nature of their culture, they make sure people are making their own choices. For example, take this character.
Mobile infantry made me the man I am today.
In the movie, it's used as a joke. I don't blame anyone, it's a funny moment. But in the book, this character flat out tells Rico that the reason why they put him there is to discourage kids from signing up. Even after Johnny enlists, when he asks to phone home to break the news to his parents, the recruiter gives him a couple of days of leave instead, explicitly telling him that there will be no consequences if he gets cold feet. So no, I don't think they're even meant to, let alone successful at critiquing the book.
You'll resign, and that's all there is to it. It may look bad, but if that's the worst you suffer, then that's fine.
Highlines Federation is less militaristic than some 20th century democracies.
I was walking down the Camden Town High Street when two young ladies approached me. "Why aren't you in the army?" I said, "I'm only 17. "Oh, they all say that here." And to my amazement, she put her hand in her bag, and I put my hand up to sort of safeguard myself when this white feather finished up my nose.
There is one aspect that works as a critique. During the shower scene in boot camp, a guy is asking people why they enlisted. This lady says,
I want to have babies. You know, it's a lot easier to get a license if you serve, so.
Later, on Clendathu, she tries running away from the bugs and dies. While child licenses aren't a thing in the book, this character can be interpreted as having one meaning in particular. If you lock some basic rights behind military service, you're going to have people joining up just to earn those rights that aren't fit for combat. However, the book's proposed society only really locks voting, political careers, and a handful of teaching jobs behind service. The justification isn't limited to
A citizen accepts personal responsibility for the safety of the body politic, defending it with his life.
or
Citizen has the courage to make the safety of the human race their personal responsibility.
but for the simple reason of, quote, under our system, every voter in office holder is a man or woman who has demonstrated through voluntary and difficult service that he places the welfare of the group ahead of personal advantage. In Heinlein's universe, if you needed to serve to have babies, you would probably choose something that doesn't require you to see combat. In the book, the mobile infantry is very proud of themselves. Retired MIs and officers in particular are constantly praising how noble and courageous and useful they are. However, this sentiment is not shared by everyone. The Navy sees the MI as needless and obsolete, and the civilians see them as meatheads too stupid to get any other job. For most people, military service and active combat aren't synonymous. Moreover, the film could be making a statement when it comes to uniforms, as the military seem to be wearing Hugo Boss suits. However, I think it was only a stylistic choice rather than a message of any kind, especially considering another aspect of Starship Trooper society. There's actually a third class of people living under the Federation, the servicemen. Soldiers are citizens, but they can't vote while serving, and in the words of the book,
Look, when you vote, you are exercising political authority. You're using force. And force, my friends, is violence, the supreme authority from which all other authority is derived.
So, while visually reminiscent of authoritarian regimes, these people don't hold any authority outside of their chain of command. I hope you guys understood that I don't consider these faults. I think all the political accuses Heinlein or Verhoeven got are completely unfounded. The book entertained the idea of a meritocratic democracy, while the movie is a good action flick set in a different universe. Starship Troopers doesn't need to be a critique of anything. It's a sci-fi war drama about fresh out of school students fighting space bugs, and it works wonderfully. I do have a couple of complaints. First of all, the CG looks very bad at times, although for most of the movie looks great. It's also kind of weird to have Xander, who's presumably in the same school year as Carmen, turn out to be her superior officer. Some of the universe also looks silly, for example the fact that nobody has any privacy whatsoever.
Look at that. 35%, ladies and gentlemen. Big numbers.
Why would this function even be a thing? Lastly, intro sequence aside, there's an hour-long build-up to the first battle, and I feel like it should probably have been more about the bugs and the army's preparation. All in all, it's a very solid movie. The character relations in particular I liked. It's not in the book. I'd say it's the single biggest difference plot-wise, but it almost turns Starship Troopers into a coming-of-age story. Chances are you too have fawned over a thought, ignoring a girl that liked you in the process, or gotten in a fight over a crush. They are childish situations, but once the characters see combat, it stops being important for them. For example, considering the animosity between Rico and Xander and how many films have personal disputes inside the army as the focus, you half expect them to have a scene where they fight to the death for their love. but Rico completely gets over Carmen. One of my favorite lines in the movie is,
"You know as well as I do she's already dead."
it's just so refreshing to see in a film like this our main character not tripping over himself for the girl. He does end up rescuing her, but that's only after Carl telepathy shenanigans, perhaps even meant to get Johnny to the brain bug rather than Carmen.
Well, look who's here. You made it. Good.
And at the end there's no hint that they're giving the relationship another go. Although differently from the book, they had to make the MI mixed gendered for it, which would suggest some kind of social progress that's just not shown.
Sometimes I think I won't make it. But then I think about what you're doing and I try hard.
Something that was a step down from the book is the MI's equipment. On one end they thought about giving officers and Navy personnel carabines instead of the long rifles, which shows attention to details. On the other hand, for dealing with these bugs, infantry is really inadequate. Just go to a museum and borrow some tanks, they'll do fine. What of the book then? What's it about? Well, first of all, it has a very prominent political aspect. The lesson we see at the beginning of the film is accurate, but in the book it's just a teaser of more in-depth discussions to come. There's a lot of flashbacks to Mr. Dubois' history and moral philosophy lessons, plus some discussions in Officer Cadet School. By the way, Dubois and Raskas are two different characters in the book, but merging them was a good twist. Heinlein's dialogues, lessons and internal monologues are quite gripping and well written. Complexively they take up a good chunk of the book, but they never feel overbearing, at least for me. As I said before, the love quadrangle is also completely absent from the book. Rico, Carmen and Carl do join up together, but after that they're seldom mentioned. Carl dies off screen and Carmen eventually finds out Johnny when he's in leave and they have a date, but nothing of much importance. Finally, this is just a guy that dies in the prologue. It's a very introspective book. Rico's mulling over old lessons is more engaging than the sci-fi element for me.
Noble sacrifice. When duty calls, you pay the price.
If I had to sum up Starship Troopers' philosophy, I'd use this quote by retired MI Colonel and now school teacher Mr. Dubois. There is an old song which asserts the best things in life are free. Not true, utterly false. This was the tragic fallacy which brought on the decadence and collapse of the democracies of the 20th century. Those noble experiments failed because the people had been led to believe that they could simply vote for whatever they wanted and get it, without toil, without sweat, without tears. I fancy that the poet who wrote that song meant to imply that the best things in life must be purchased other than with money, which is true, just as the literal meaning of his words is false. The best things in life are beyond money, and their price is agony and sweat and devotion, and the price demanded for the most precious of all things in life is life itself, the ultimate cost for the perfect value. I leave it up to you to decide if you agree or disagree with him. Another difference is that many characters were simplified. Zim in particular, while he's a fun character in Verhoeven's version, lacks any depth. For example, in the book, during knife throwing practice, a recruit asks him,
Sir, I don't understand. Who needs a knife in a nuke fight anyway? All you gotta do is push a button.
and he goes on a tangent about how if the goal was just to completely annihilate the enemy, the Navy could probably handle things by themselves by nuking every planet, and that sometimes occupations or more moderate shows of force are necessary to achieve the political goals of the people in charge through the strategic goals of the generals. It then continues, saying that it's not up to the soldiers to decide whether or not force should be used or how power should be projected, and if the private can be convinced of that, then he should probably give up on being a soldier. Again, I don't blame the movie for not including all of this, it's a good action-oriented adaptation.
The enemy cannot push a button if you disable his hand.
Speaking of action, the biggest difference in that regard is, well, everything. First of all, the mobile infantry gets their name from mobile armored suits that might or might not look like garbage, that allows them to jump around, keep in touch with each other and carry lots of ordnance. Heinlein goes on in details about the types and functionalities of the suits. No soldiers goes in battle without it, and they have some weaknesses and limitations to work around. They also drop from space via capsules. They only land with retrieval boats if there's a beachhead already secured. So of course, instead of being massed foot infantry, it's few, usually spread out, men in power armor. The bugs are also very different, there's only two non-royalty kind of them. The workers, which are incapable of harming anything, and the warriors, which are similar in looks to the workers, but they have guns. Yeah, the enemies in the book are spiders with laser guns. They're coordinated by a hive mind, they're unaffected by most injuries, and they're also pretty trash at melee combat, which is an interesting take on insectoid aliens. By far my biggest gripe with the book is that everyone, from civilian to general, uses the expression buying a farm. We're constantly hearing about people buying a piece of it or being involved in real estate deals. It's kind of annoying, but also a very minor complaint. Another one, albeit very subjective, would be that I find everything concerning canine neodogs unintentionally hilarious, especially their brief mention during the Klendathu drop. Since these dogs were not trained to stay calm in front of the bugs, once they see one they just blow themselves up with anti-capture explosive devices. I just think it's such a silly scenario, it's humorous. But overall, there's nothing major for me to complain about. Starship Troopers is a great read. So, here's my final thoughts on Paul Verhoeven's adaptation of Robert A. Heinlein's book. Pretty good. It is lacking 90% of the political stuff, but that's to be expected. If an adaptation can't stay accurate to the source material, the best it can do is its own thing. Starship Troopers keeps the characters' names, some of the events, and part of the universe, but not much else. Nonetheless, despite the inconsistent tone, it's a great action movie and spawned plenty of other media. If all goes well, I'll be making more videos on Starship Troopers content, so if you're interested, stay tuned.
At least he's flying out of here.
As for the book, I absolutely recommend it. It's ahead of its time when it comes to sci-fi concepts and it's set in an intriguing world. Okay? That's all. Thanks for watching. See ya!
When a colony reaches a certain size, 300 generations or something, it gets smarter.
Insects with intelligence? Have you ever met one? I can't believe I am hearing this nonsense.
You just
this
wait
is the most
a moment.
ridiculous conversation I have ever had.
There is some kind of bug that we haven't seen yet. A leadership caste, a hive brain.
Brain bugs? Frankly, I find the idea of a bug that thinks offensive.
No way, bug.